into effect. 50 votes is what you need.
Yeah, and of course, I forgot to mention, but Joe Manchin of the coal state of West Virginia will probably like this appointment quite a bit. So it's not exactly a straightforward partisan.
I want to ask you, Laura, about another pick that the president made today, and that was Andy Puzder, who is a fast food executive, Hardee's, Carl's Jr. He's an outspoken critic of Obamacare and its impact on workers and business, an outspoken critic of the minimum wage and the administration overtime rules. What are your thoughts about his pick?
I think he's going to annoy both sides. I think he's extremely smart, obviously very accomplished, and I think you can make a case for him. However, on the issue of immigration and foreign workers coming into the United States, there's a lot of folks out there, Breitbart has a big piece tonight, that Puzder is not good on those issues, that he's kept wages very low at his company, not just against the minimum wage, but by having mostly immigrant workers on places like Carl's Jr. So is he opposed to one of the bedrock ideas that of course President-elect Trump ran on? So that is a concern. I've been getting lots of emails over the last several hours about this pick. So we'll see how that shakes out. But it could be one of those odd picks that annoys both sides. He's
also a big exponent of automation and the idea that you can save a lot of money by having machines on employees. And one of his arguments is if you make the cost of labor too expensive, people are just going to go to machines in places where they
we'll
can.
See how well that works out for them.
All right, we have to take a break here. Up next, Donald Trump against congressional Republicans on the issue of trade.
Manufacturing jobs in this country. We're going to take away the advantages that companies have had for decades to take jobs out of the United States.
We believe the best way to solve that very important goal is comprehensive tax reform.
A sharp difference of opinion between Vice President-elect Mike Pence and Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan over the best way to stop American jobs from going overseas. And we're back now with the panel. So there is this disagreement, Steve, between the Trump team, which favors the idea of punitive 35% tariffs if a company moves out with its jobs and then tries to ship goods back into the U.S., and the Republican leadership in Congress, which is talking about, no, just general tax reform, better business climate, cut back on regulations, not trade wars. Where's this going to end up?
Yeah, good question. I think we're likely to see a huge effort by congressional Republicans to push back on some of the things that Donald Trump said, but it all depends on when he does this. I mean, if Donald Trump moves early on trade issues, he can make the argument that he ran on these issues. They were one of his signature issues, without a doubt, and that he deserves sort of the benefit of the doubt as he makes his case. I think the question, in a broader sense, remains, are Republicans here trying to sort of fill in the gaps that the free market sometimes leaves, whether you're talking about trade deals or whether you're talking about just the operation of the markets inside the country, or are you talking about abandoning free markets? And I think if it's the former, you may actually find some common ground between people who have been traditionally free traders like Paul Ryan and Donald Trump. If it's the latter, and it's a turn away, a sharp turn away from free markets, and you had the quote from Mike Pence last week where he said, you know, we've tried the free market and America has been a loser, that's going to be alarming to Republicans who believe in free markets, to businesses and people like me.
Let me ask you, Laura, because it raises an interesting question. I think there are some people on Capitol Hill who think that Trump really doesn't care about the details, and they can set the agenda and they can pass the bills and Trump will just sign it. And you're shaking your head. That ain't the way it's going to work.
I don't think that's the way it's going to work. I think on this issue, he believes he has both support on the right and on the left. I know we're talking about this carrier thing coming up. You go back to the head of the Indiana Steelworkers Union, the National Steelworkers Union as well. They're in favor of the tariffs. They like the idea of tariffs. Not just tariffs to throw on tariffs for the sake of tariffs, but when the market is inefficient, when the free market fails because of a foreign country's subsidy of companies or devaluing currency or cheating or dumping, all the things that we know China does, that's when, presidents throughout our history have engaged in selective use of tariffs. And I think that's the rub here. Will this make sense in certain cases? Will it be a uniform, slapping on a 35% tariff? But you can do both things. And traditionally, presidents have, both Republicans and Democrats. The idea of the tariff is some four-letter word is just preposterous. It actually can be a market efficiency maker if deployed the right way. And on the carrier thing, I don't know if we're going to get into that, but that actually, whether it's 800 jobs or 1,000 jobs, that makes market sense because it really doesn't cost it. In 1.6 months, I think all the cost for this gets paid back.
All right. Well, let me get into that, because it's not just CEOs that Mr. Trump is confronting. He also got into quite a tussle today with the head of the local union in